Let's continue with some more styling to this Ionic that we already did. I'm going to minimize the windows with the icons, and this is also from a page from one of the blogs from the Ionic people. And if you can search specifically for this one, build awesome desktop apps with Ionic new responsive grid. So it's from February 24th, 2017. Now, I could go through it comparing to some of the old ways to some of the new. But we're just going to look at some of these in here, how we can actually use some of these to write less, write less code to sell all your designs. So some of the things I'm just gonna go with here is I'm going to use the row in this case, and I'm going to align items. So we already know for example, the align justify content for center, so everything is centered and so on. But let's just try to make this, instead of being aligned to the top, we're going to align it to the center of whatever height our current template, our current HTML tag or element has. So let's go to the first row here, and I just copied, let's minimize that one as well. I just copied align item start. Now start is what it already has, and remember to do it correctly. Align items start is standard. So we can also do not an end, but a center. And if I do this, go to my app, it should be centered now. But because I did some weird things with my CSS, this one won't be centered and so on. But we can use this align items inside our HTML tags to just write what we want. So we can also do end. And then bam, it goes to the bottom of it instead. So we can just quickly incorporate some of these HTML things that are built into the system that we don't actually have to write CSS for because somebody already did it for us. So as you can see here, there's some examples, and they're very much alike the things you already know from first semester. That's the reason why we dive so deep into them for you to learn, because we're going to use them here. Another thing we're going to try to just see the difference, and this is where to go, Ionic app. So we can actually see the difference. We're just going to use a little more CSS, so just to refresh some of the things we have done, because we're going to be using some of these concepts and these ideas and how everything works. We're going to create a loop, so the one that goes around, around, around as many times as we tells it to. So I need to do a @ sign. There we go. An @ and you can see it's already trying to, do you mean any of these? And it did the same before. And we want the for loop in our case. For when how do we make that? There we go. The $ here. For I from 1 to through 12. So it starts from 1 and it goes through 12 iterations. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to create a loop, and we're going to color our columns here. So we have different columns. So columns, as you can see here, right now we have a column 8. So if we use specific things, we are just going to change for each of those. We're going to change the colors, just for fun, basically. Or maybe just to refresh. That's kind of the more thing we're going to do here. And that's kind of our loop. Now we're going to create a variable more. And remember, when we use these $ in SAS, they're called variables. So variable bg color, because we're going to change the background color. And we're going to use a function that is being built into SAS that we already did when we used all these maps, and we changed the variance of the colors from either going from standard color, base color, to either a lighter one or a darker one. We're just going to use the darken here. And in this, we're going to first write the color we want to use and the amount it's going to change. And we're just going to start with 15 and change it later. That's the first part we're going to do in here. And now we're going to also create a, tell it to where we're going to do this. So for this to actually help, I didn't break, phew, maybe it was about to. We need to inspect our code, because we need to see where should it create these changes. So right now I'm hovering over this 2 of 3 wider in the top one, and because I want to see this specific mark down here where my mouse is, just column -8. I want to fetch that part. So for each 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12, we're going to do a different color for each of those. If I go to this one, this is the standard one. There's really no change because there's no number. But here we can see this like squared parentheses or like squared brackets. That's what we're going to hit. So for each of these, from 1 to 12, we're going to assign a different background color. So on a PC, I'm on a Mac, you're going to hold down, press down Options and 8-9 on my keyboard. May vary if you have a different language, but we need the square brackets here. Very important. And in here we're going to write col dash, and just like we did with our ses, we're going to assign for each time there's a number, we're going to say for each number, so it starts from 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then hey. And we also need to wrap this in this number calculator counter. You need to wrap them in a curly bracket. So let's zoom a little bit in, like this. So this is what it's stating right now. First part done. Create curly brackets because we're going to tell it what are we going to do. We're going to create a background color, and we're going to use the BG color we just created up here that goes from one color to another. So when I click save, it's just going to be having the same as a little error here. Let's see what I did wrong. I should put this one outside like this. So I just put the hashtag outside, and there we go. So now you can see only the ones with numbers have been changed for the color here. But you can't really tell them apart. So what's the point? Weird. We are going to make sure that this number also changes for each iteration. So instead of having 15, we're just going to use the I like this. So it's going to add 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for each time it goes through. And now you can see there's a slight difference, but that's really not a lot. So we can add a calculator for this by using a parentheses and just doing plus, I hate doing that letter, I. So I plus I. Basically, it's going to start at 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, then so on, so on, so on. And now you can see slightly darker and more comparisons. This is just to use so we can actually start seeing what all these things in our HTML, so all these lines where they hit and so on. So if I hit this down to my column 8, and we can just continue adding to, nope, that didn't work. So we may have to work around this. And let's see, but don't worry about it, we'll figure that one out later. But you can see we can start doing all these small cool things and still using our knowledge from ses and still using our knowledge from HTML and just combining with all the things that are actually in Ionic here. So try to go to this page over here and just go through some of the things they talk about, what can you do now and so on. This is just really a small part of all the cool things you can do. What we really want to go when we need to do is for this part in here. There's so many things we can do. So creating sliding effect, creating whatever you want really. So there's many of the things we want to do with our designs are already there. We just need to find them. But that's of course for you to, also for me to help, but also going forward, we're going to be looking into that specific part.